The phone rang on a quiet Monday morning, shattering the silence of my kitchen like a gunshot. It was Betty, my housekeeper of 25 years, and her voice was trembling so hard I could barely understand her.
"Mr. Frank," she whispered, "I have been keeping a secret for 20 years and I cannot hold it in anymore."
That call did not just ruin my day. It erased my entire life. My name is Frank. I am 67 years old. I own a trucking company here in Dayton, Ohio, and today I am going to tell you the most painful story I have ever lived through. This is a story about trust, lies, and how the humblest person in my house was the only one who had the guts to tell me the truth. If you have ever trusted someone with your eyes closed, or if you thought you truly knew a person, this story is going to hit home. You might just understand that sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who fool us the worst. I want to ask you something before I start. If you have ever gone through the pain of discovering a massive lie or a betrayal that flipped your whole world upside down, leave me a like so this old man knows he is not alone in this pain. Subscribe to the Grandparents' Diaries channel right now, because I'm going to tell more life stories that will touch your heart deeply. Tell me in the comments where you are watching this video from and what time it is there right now. Have you ever trusted someone who stabbed you in the back? I love knowing what corner of the States or the world you are listening from and what time of day you take a moment to hear me out. I was born right here in Dayton, a good city with hard-working folks where everyone knows everyone. My dad was a trucker who lived on the road, and I grew up watching him leave before dawn with a loaded trailer and come back weeks later, tired but happy because he had brought home the bacon. My mom took care of us 5 kids alone most of the time. She was a strong woman, the kind who does not complain, who cooks on a wood stove and sings while she works. I learned the value of hard work from my dad, and from my mom, I learned that family is sacred. Or at least, that is what I thought. I grew up helping my dad. By the time I was 12, I was already going with him on short hauls, learning how to handle the rig, how to strap down the load, how to talk to clients. My dad used to say, "Son, a real man is a man of his word. If you promise, you deliver. If you get married, it is for life. If you have a family, you protect them." I guarded those words like gold. I thought everyone thought that way. When my dad died, I was a little over 20. I was left with his old beat-up truck and a mountain of debt, but I did not give up. I took that truck, fixed it up as best as I could, and started working. I hauled everywhere. Chicago, Detroit, Nashville, St. Louis. I would spend 15 or 20 days on the road sleeping in the cab, eating cold sandwiches, showering in truck stops, and the money started coming in. I paid off my dad's debts, bought another truck, then one more. I was growing slowly with sweat and honesty. It was around that time that I met Susan. She was the daughter of a traditional family here in Dayton, people with land and old money. I was just a trucker who was starting to come up in life, but she was pretty sweet and always at church. Mass every Sunday, rosary every night. She lived with a prayer book in her hand. A real family girl, as we say around here. I thought, this is the right woman for me. A woman of God, hardworking. She will take care of the house while I work. I married her thinking I had found a treasure. Little did I know I was stepping into a lie that would last a lifetime. Our life started simple, with me working on the road and her taking care of the house. Soon the kids arrived. First Rick, then Sophie. I was happy coming back from trips, tired and covered in grease, but happy. Susan always welcomed me well with a hot meal on the table, a tidy house, and clean kids. She kept going to church every day. "It is my peace," she would say. "I need to pray for our marriage, for your safety on the road." I thought it was beautiful. Just my luck, I thought, to have a woman so dedicated to God and the family. The business kept growing, going from 2 trucks to 5, then 5 to 10. Today, I have a fleet of 40 semis, a big office, and employees, but the price of that success was living on the highway. 15 or 20 days away was normal, sometimes even more. Susan stayed home with the kids and with the help of Father Thomas, the parish priest at St. Mary's. He had been a friend of her family forever. He had baptized our kids and was a respected figure all over town. "Rest easy," Susan would say. "Father Thomas looks after us while you travel. He is a man of God." I thanked the Lord for having such a dedicated priest looking after my family. It is funny, isn't it, how we sometimes invite the wolf right in, and the only person who knew the truth was the housekeeper, the quietest woman in the house, the one nobody paid attention to. "What do you mean, Betty?" I grew up thinking every man was like that every woman was faithful like my mom. We were 5 siblings, me being the oldest. We lived in a simple house, 3 bedrooms, cement floors, and a wood stove. My mom got up before the sun to make coffee. That strong, black coffee, strong like her life, with biscuits, butter from the neighbor's farm, fresh cheese, a real breakfast that fills the belly and the heart. While we ate, my mom was already at the stove making food for lunch. Meatloaf, green beans, potatoes, simple but plenty of it. I grew up like that, watching my dad work and my mom handle everything alone. She never complained. I never heard her say a bad word about my dad, even though he stayed away so long. "He is working for us," she would say. "A man who works deserves respect." And I learned that. I learned that work is sacred, that a real man provides for his family, that trust is the foundation of everything. When I was about 12, I started traveling with my dad on short routes. Dayton to Cincinnati, Dayton to Columbus. He taught me everything: how to strap the load tight, how to check the tires, how to calculate fuel. "Pay attention, son," he would say. "One day this will be yours." The truck is not just about driving, it is about caring. It is about respect. Just like marriage, you care for it, you respect it, and it lasts a lifetime. I kept those words as if they were verses from the Bible. On trips, we stopped at roadside diners. We ate that diner food: meatloaf with gravy, mashed potatoes, fresh pie. My dad talked to other truckers, swapped info about the road, about freight. I stayed quiet, just listening, learning. I learned that in this world of the road, a man's word is worth more than a contract. If you say you are going to pick up the load, you pick it up. If you say you deliver on time, you deliver. Honor above all else. We would come home and my mom was always there waiting. Clean house, food ready, smile on her face. I never saw my mom give my dad a dirty look. I never saw fights. I never saw suspicion. I thought every marriage was like that when you marry a decent woman, you can travel in peace, knowing she will be there waiting, faithful, taking care of the home. Man, I was so innocent back then. It makes me want to go back and shake that young kid I was and tell him to open his eyes. But I guess we only learn the hard way. My dad died when I was still young, massive heart attack in the middle of a trip. They found him in the truck cab, his hand still on the wheel. He died doing what he loved. The pain was big, but the responsibility was bigger. I was left with the old truck all beat up and the debt my dad had left. It was me or the family went hungry. I took on everything. I took the truck to a mechanic here in town, Mr. Tony, who was a friend of my dad. "Frank," he told me, "this truck is on its last legs, but I am going to fix it up. Your dad was a good man and you are too. Pay when you can." He fixed the truck practically for free, only charged for the parts. Good people still exist. I learned that there. I started traveling alone. I was scared, I'm not going to lie. I was young. The road was dangerous. Thieves do not show mercy. But it was that or let my mom and siblings go without. I took small loads first, corn from Dayton to Indiana, auto parts to Michigan, loads nobody wanted that paid little but taught me the way. It went on like that for years, traveling, coming back, taking whatever freight showed up. I slept in the cab, ate cold food, showered in freezing water at gas stations, but the money started coming in. Slowly, but it came. I paid my dad's debts, helped my mom, bought clothes for my siblings, and had a little money left for myself. With that money, I bought another truck, old too, but running. I hired a driver, Joe, who had worked with my dad, a trusted man, a man of his word. Now I had 2 trucks rolling. Then I bought the third, the fourth. The trucking company was growing. My dad's name, which was respected on the road, opened doors for me. "Are you Jack's son?" the clients asked. "Then the load is yours." Your dad never let me down, and I honored my dad's name. I never delayed a delivery, never lost a load, never cheated a client. It was around that time when life was starting to improve that I met Susan. She appeared in my life like a gift from God, or at least that was what I thought at the moment. Today, I know it was the beginning of my misfortune. I met Susan at a parish festival here in Dayton. I had gone kind of forced by an invitation from a client who was devoted to the church. I was not much for parties. I spent the whole week on the road. When I came home, I just wanted to rest. But the client was good. He paid on time. So I went. Hot cider, bonfires, music, that good small-town party vibe everyone knows. She was there serving pies at one of the church stalls, wearing a nice dress, hair done up in ribbons. Pretty polite, nice to everyone. I grabbed a slice of pie just to have an excuse to talk to her. "Is the pie good?" she asked. "It is delicious," I answered, "but not as sweet as the one who made it." She laughed, turned red, looked down. Shyness of a family girl. I started chatting. I asked her name, where she lived, what she did. She said her family had land around Dayton, that she helped her mom at home, that she was very Catholic, that she lived at the church. "I go to Mass every day," she said proudly, "and I help with parish activities. Father Thomas always needs help." Father Thomas. That name that would become the curse of my life. But that day, when she mentioned it, I felt nothing. He was just the priest, a common figure in her life. I asked her to be my girlfriend that same night. She said she needed her father's permission. I went to her house the next day. Big old farmhouse, high ceilings, porch with rocking chairs. Her father received me in the living room, a serious man with a gray mustache, a suspicious look. "Are you Jack's son?" "The trucker," he asked. "Yes, sir." "Your dad was a hard worker. Died young, poor guy. And you, what do you do with your life?" "I'm running the trucking company that was his, sir. I have 4 trucks now. I plan to grow more," I told him. He looked me up and down, evaluating. You could see I was not the type of son-in-law he wanted. His family had a name, land, social standing. I was a trucker, even if I owned the rigs. But Susan insisted. "Dad, he is hard-working, honest, a good man." After much thinking, he accepted. "You can date, but nothing funny. My daughter is a decent girl from a Catholic family. If it is for marriage, get married in the church, and with God's blessing." Our courtship was fast. She was affectionate, attentive, treated me well. She baked cakes for me. She embroidered napkins, those things girls used to do. She talked about marriage, children, building a family. "I want to be a dedicated wife," she said. "Take care of the house, the kids, you. While you work out there, I take care of everything here." It seemed too perfect to be true. And it was, but I did not suspect a thing. She went to church every day, sometimes twice a day. I am going to help Father Thomas, she said. He is organizing the patron saint festival. He needs help. I found all that dedication beautiful. How lucky am I thought, dating a girl so religious, so pure. My mom adored her. This girl is a blessing, son. Marry her soon. Do not let her get away. We got married at the parish with a solemn mass, Father Thomas celebrating. The church was full, her family on one side, my family and friends on the other. Susan, beautiful in a white dress, long veil, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. Father Thomas gave a moving ceremony. He spoke about faithfulness, about respect, about the sacrament of marriage. What God has joined, let no man put asunder, he said, looking at both of us. Be faithful to one another in joy and in sorrow, in sickness and in health, until death do you part. I said I do, with a heart full of hope. She also said I do, but her I do was a lie, and Father Thomas knew it. There was no honeymoon. I had a scheduled load. I could not lose it. When I grow more, we will travel, I promised. For now, I need to work. She understood, or pretended she understood. We went to live in a rented house near downtown Dayton. Simple house, 2 bedrooms, living room, kitchen, bathroom, but it was ours. The early times were good. I worked a lot, traveled a lot, but when I came home, she was always there. Food ready, house clean, laundry done. She complained a little about my absence, but nothing serious. I know you need to work, she said, but I miss you. I get lonely here. Go to your mom's house, go to church, talk to your friends, I suggested. Yes, I go, she answered with a smile that, today I know, was fake. Soon she got pregnant with Rick. I was so happy. I was going to be a dad. I was going to have a son to raise, to teach everything my dad taught me. I took care of her during the whole pregnancy. When I was home, I did everything. I helped her get up. I gave her massages on her swollen feet. I got her whatever she craved. When I traveled, I left extra money. I asked my mom to check on her, but Susan was never alone. Father Thomas was always around. He comes here to the house to keep me company, she said. He brings prayer books. We pray the rosary together. I thanked God for having a priest so dedicated to protecting my pregnant wife. What a good man, I thought, taking care of my family while I work. It never crossed my mind that he was taking advantage of my absence, that every time I traveled he entered my house, slept in my bed, laid with my wife. Rick was born, and it was a celebration. Beautiful boy, healthy, loud crier. Father Thomas baptized him at the church. Beautiful ceremony, everyone there. This boy is going to be a good man, he said, with his hand on the baby's head. He is going to honor his father and mother. Honor his father? What a joke. He was baptizing his own son, and I did not know. A few years later, Sophie arrived. Beautiful girl, light eyes, curly hair. Another joy in my life, another lie in my face. Father Thomas baptized her too. Your family is blessed, Frank, he told me after the ceremony, shaking my hand firmly. 2 beautiful kids, dedicated wife, growing business. God favors you. I believed him. I believed every word from that man in the collar. Meanwhile, he was laughing at me on the inside. The routine of our life was always the same. I traveled, stayed 15, 20 days away. I called from payphones on the highway to know how everything was. Everything is fine here, Susan always said. The kids are great. I'm fine. Father Thomas stopped by today, brought a blessing for us. And I, the fool, thanked God for that man. When I came back from trips, I always brought gifts. A doll for Sophie, a toy truck for Rick, a new dress for Susan. I arrived home tired, dirty from the road, but happy. I hugged the kids, kissed my wife, thanked God for the family I had. A family that was not mine, kids that were not mine, a wife who was never mine. But at that time I knew nothing. And there was one person who knew Betty. She had arrived at our house when the kids were small, needing a job, a widow with kids to support. She started working for us, cleaning, washing, cooking, and watching everything that happened in that house while I was far away on the highway, sweating to support a family that was betraying me. Betty came to my house at a time when the business was growing well. I had just bought more trucks. The trucking company was getting known in the region. Contracts were appearing. Susan said she couldn't handle the house alone anymore, that she needed help. "With you traveling so much, the kids small, the house big, I cannot do it anymore," she complained. I accepted immediately. Of course, she needed help. I wanted my wife to rest, to have time for the kids, for the church she loved so much. Betty appeared recommended by a neighbor. Simple woman, humble widow with 3 kids to raise alone. Her husband had died in a work accident. She was left with nothing, needing to move forward. "I know how to do everything, Mrs. Susan," she said the day of the interview. "Wash, iron, cook, clean. I need this job very much. I have my kids to support." Susan looked at me. I accepted. "You can start Monday," said my wife. And that is how Betty entered our life. She entered to work, to mop the floor, to wash clothes, but ended up becoming the silent witness of the greatest crime committed against me. She saw everything from the moment she figured it out, and she stayed quiet. Not because she was an accomplice, but because she was poor, because she needed the job, because she knew nobody was going to believe the word of a housekeeper against the word of a patron and a priest. In the early days, Betty was just another person in the house. She arrived early, around 7 in the morning, made coffee, made the beds, washed the dishes from the day before. She was discreet, quiet, worked without making noise. The kids were fond of her. She was affectionate, patient, played with them while she cleaned the house. "Aunt Betty tells us a story?" Rick asked, and she told simple stories from when she was a girl about animals in the woods, about ghost stories from her village. Susan treated her well, but always with that distance of employer to employee. "Betty, heat up the food. Betty, wash these clothes. Betty, tidy up the room. Order here, order there." Betty obeyed everything, always with a, "Yes, Mrs. Susan," softly. She never complained, never protested. She needed the job too much to risk it. I treated her with respect. My mom always taught me that all work is dignified, that nobody is better than anyone else. When I was home, I chatted with her. "And the kids? Betty, how are they?" "Good, Mr. Frank, thanks to God. Do you need anything? You can speak." She thanked me, always shy, always grateful. She never asked for anything beyond her salary, which I always paid well without delay. The business kept growing. From 4 trucks, I went to 10, from 10 to 20. I built an office, hired employees, a secretary, an accountant. The house also improved. We left the rental, bought our own house, bigger, with a yard, 2-car garage. Susan was happy. "Now we really have a proper house," she said. I furnished everything, bought a new fridge, new stove, color TV. I wanted my family to have comfort, but the price of all that comfort was me living on the road. The more the company grew, the more I traveled. Now, it was not just Ohio, no. It was Chicago, Detroit, Nashville, all the way to St. Louis. Long trips of weeks. I called every day from payphones. "Hello, love. Is everything okay?" "Yes, everything is fine. The kids are doing great. I am good too. When do you come back?" "In a few days. Love you. Love you too." Lie. She never loved me, but I didn't know it. The routine of the house when I traveled was always the same, or at least that was what I thought. Susan got up, took the kids to school, came back, stayed home until pickup time. In the afternoon, there was always something at church. Prayer group meeting, she said when I called. Choir rehearsal, organizing the festival for, I don't know what saint. Always the church. Always Father Thomas needing help. Betty saw the real routine. She saw Susan fixing herself up more than normal on days I traveled. She saw her putting on perfume, doing her hair, wearing nice clothes. "I am going to church," she told Betty. "I will be back later. If the kids need anything, you are here." And she left. She came back only in the early hours, 3, 4 in the morning. She entered the house like nothing happened, went to sleep, woke up normal the next day. Other times, she did not even leave. The car arrived, always the same car. Betty saw it from the window of her little room in the back. Black sedan, discreet, parked in the driveway. Man entered through the kitchen door, stayed until dawn, left before the sun came up. Every time I traveled, the same thing, sometimes 2, 3 times a week. Betty never saw the man's face at first. He arrived when it was already night, left while it was still dark, but she knew someone was there. She heard the noises, the low conversations, Susan's laughter that she never heard when I was home. A different laugh, looser, happier. A laugh of a woman in love, only not with me. For months, Betty carried that alone. She cleaned the house, knowing that in that bed she made, my wife and another man slept. She washed the sheets, knowing what had happened there. She ironed Susan's clothes, knowing she used those clothes to meet the lover. And she stayed quiet. "It is none of my business," she repeated to herself. "I need the job. I have my kids." One day, they almost caught her. It was early in the morning. She had just arrived to work. She entered through the kitchen door as always and almost bumped into a man leaving. He turned his face quickly, but she saw. It was not just any man. It was a known figure, very well known, but she did not want to believe what she had seen. "I must have seen wrong," she thought. "It cannot be him. It cannot." But it was. She confirmed it over time, the car, the voice that sometimes escaped when they thought no one was listening, the way of walking. There was no doubt. The man who slept with Susan, who betrayed me, who used my house like a motel, was Father Thomas, the man I respected who baptized my kids, who said Mass at my wedding. That man. Betty felt disgust, felt rage, wanted to tell. But how? To whom? I was traveling. There were no cell phones back then, just payphones. Was she going to call the office, ask them to take a message? "Mr. Frank, your wife is cheating on you with the priest?" Nobody would believe her. They would say she was crazy, that she was making it up, that she wanted to cause trouble and she would lose her job. Worse, she would lose her reference. She would be marked in town. That is Betty, the one who invented lies about the boss and the priest. She would not get a job anywhere. So she kept quiet, but the guilt ate her up inside. Every time I came home, happy, hugged the kids, kissed Susan, thanked God for the blessed family I had, Betty felt her heart squeeze. Poor Mr. Frank, she thought, working like a dog, thinking he has a real family. If he only knew. But she did not speak. Years passed. Rick and Sophie growing up, me working, traveling, building wealth. Susan cheating, lying, living a double life. Father Thomas celebrating Mass, giving blessings, sleeping with a married woman. And Betty seeing everything, keeping everything. Dying of guilt inside. There was one time I arrived from a trip by surprise. I had finished the job earlier than planned, decided to come home. I arrived late at night, around 2 in the morning. The house was dark. I unlocked the door slowly, not to wake anyone. Went to the bedroom. Susan was sleeping alone. I breathed, relieved, without knowing why. I lay down beside her. She woke up scared. "Frank, you scared me." "Sorry, love. I arrived early." She acted strange, kind of nervous. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Yes, just that you scared me." I kissed her, went to sleep. The next day, Betty arrived at work pale. She looked at me, looked at Susan, said nothing. Only later did I understand. That night, I had arrived too early. If I had arrived an hour earlier, maybe I would have caught them both. Maybe I would have discovered everything right there, but no. God had not prepared the moment of truth yet. The years kept passing, my business growing, my family growing, my betrayal growing too. And Betty, there, a mute witness to everything, until one day she found an evangelical church. She went to a service with a friend just to keep her company. She heard the pastor speak about truth, about deliverance, about how hiding someone else's sin is participating in the sin. Those words stayed hammering in her head. I am participating in the sin. I know the truth and I do not speak. I am an accomplice. She started attending the church. She accepted Jesus, got baptized. New life. And with the new life came conviction. I need to tell. I can't take it anymore. Mr. Frank deserves to know even if he loses everything. And that was what brought her to that day, shaking in front of me, about to destroy the world I thought I had built. Going back to that Monday morning when Betty finally gathered the courage to speak, she was in front of me, shaking, eyes full of tears after saying those terrible words. When you travel, your wife does not sleep alone, and I know who the man is. I was sitting at the kitchen table feeling the world spin. Who is it, Betty? I asked with a voice that barely came out. Who is the man? She lowered her head, dried her tears with the corner of her apron. Mr. Frank, you are not going to believe me. Nobody will believe me. That is why I stayed quiet so long. I will believe you, I shouted without meaning to. Speak now, for the love of God. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and let it out. It is Father Thomas. The silence that fell in that kitchen was the silence of death. I felt as if my heart had been ripped out of my chest by hand. What? I managed to whisper. The priest, Father Thomas. She nodded, crying. It cannot be, Betty. You are wrong. A priest does not do that, let alone Father Thomas, who is a man of God, who baptized my kids, who— I know, Mr. Frank. She interrupted me, voice firm now. I know it seems impossible. That is why I never told. Who would believe the housekeeper saying the boss's wife is with the priest? They would say I am crazy, that I am lying. But I saw him. I saw him many times. I have been seeing him for 20 years. My legs failed. I sat on the floor right there in the kitchen, leaning against the cabinets. 20 years. 20 years. How did you find out? I asked, needing details, needing to understand. And that was when she started telling everything from the beginning. She told about the first months working here, when she started noticing Susan leaving the house all dressed up for someone just going to church. She told about the times my wife came back at dawn, entering the house quietly, thinking nobody saw. She told about the car parking in the driveway, always the same car, always the nights I traveled. She told about the time she almost bumped into the man leaving at dawn and recognized him, the priest. I did not want to believe at first, Betty said, wiping her face. I thought I saw wrong, that it was someone who looked like him, but then I started paying attention. The car was the same one the priest used. The voice I heard sometimes when they thought nobody was awake was his voice, and there was a day I had absolute certainty. What day? I asked, voice hoarse from holding back tears. It was a time you called from the road in the mid-afternoon asking me to go get Mrs. Susan at the church because you wanted to talk to her. It was urgent, continued Betty. It was late, almost 9 at night. I went, arrived at the church. It was all dark, only the sacristy had a light on. I knocked on the door. Nobody answered. I pushed slowly. It was unlocked. And that was when I saw them.
Saw what? I asked.
But I already knew the answer. I already felt the pain of truth. I saw the two of them, Mrs. Susan and Father Thomas, hugging, kissing in the sacristy. Mr. Frank in the place where he puts on his robe to say Mass. I stood there, unable to move. They did not see me, thank God. I left slowly, went back home, did not even look for her. I called you and made up that she was not at church, that she must have gone somewhere else. Every word was a stab, every detail was torture. Why didn't you tell me then? I asked, knowing the answer but needing to hear. Because I was scared, Mr. Frank, she cried. Scared of losing my job, of not finding another, of my kids going hungry. And I was scared nobody would believe me. It was my word against the word of the boss's wife and the priest. I would lose. Always. So I swallowed it. I swallowed it deep and pretended I hadn't seen anything, but I saw, and I never forgot. I sat there on the floor trying to process 20 years of lies, 20 years being played for a fool, working like a dog, traveling, sweating, building wealth, all for what? To support a priest's mistress? To raise kids? My God, the kids! Betty! I spoke slowly, afraid of the answer. My kids, Rick and Sophie. They are mine. She looked at me with a pity in her eyes that hurt more than anything. I don't know, Mr. Frank. I don't know. But Rick was born how long after the wedding? A few months, I answered. About 6 months. She stayed quiet, needed to say nothing else. If the betrayal was happening since before the marriage, as Susan had confessed in the other version of herself, I was yet to hear, then the kids could be anyone's. The pain I felt in that moment has no name. It is not jealousy, it is not anger, it is not disappointment. It is all that together and multiplied by 1,000. It is the feeling that your whole life was a lie, that everything you built, everything you loved, everything you believed was fake. I had been deceived for the time it takes a man to build an entire life. What do I do now, Betty? I asked, because suddenly I knew nothing. I could not think straight. You need proof, she said firmly, because if you accuse without proof, they will deny, especially the priest. He has standing in this town. Everyone respects him. If you speak without proof, they will say you are crazy, that you are making it up. You need to catch them. She was right. Word against word I would lose, especially against a priest with decades of reputation. I needed concrete proof, irrefutable. Help me, Betty, I begged. Help me discover the truth. Help me catch these two. I will help you, she said without hesitating. I already kept this secret for 20 years out of cowardice. Now, I am going to help you discover the truth for justice. Tell me what to do. We spent the whole morning planning. Susan had gone to Mass, was going to return only in the afternoon. We had time. The plan was simple. I was going to pretend to travel. I was going to tell Susan ahead of time, say it was a long trip of a week. I was going to leave the house with the suitcase, with the car, all normal, but I wasn't going to travel. I was going to hide at Betty's house, which was a few blocks from mine, and I was going to wait. When she leaves the house, or when he arrives, I call you, said Betty. Then you come and see with your own eyes and bring your phone to take pictures. You need proof. Cell phones with cameras already existed back then. It wasn't very good yet, but it worked to take pictures. It was going to work. I waited for Susan to return. She arrived around lunchtime, all smiles, smelling good. Hi, love, she greeted, animated. What a surprise seeing you home. I thought you had traveled today. No, the trip is tomorrow, I lied. Closed a big contract in Chicago. I will be away for 5 or 6 days. I saw her eyes shine. It wasn't joy for me. It was joy for my absence. "That is great, love," she said. But what she meant was, "That is great that you are going to disappear." That night was one of the worst of my life. Lying next to her, knowing everything, pretending I knew nothing. She slept peacefully, even smiling. I spent the whole night awake, looking at the ceiling, planning suffering, dying inside. How many times had she slept in that bed after she was with him? How many times had I kissed that mouth that kissed a priest's mouth? How many times had I made love to a woman who didn't love me, who was only with me for convenience? The next day I did the whole theater, packed the bag, put it in the car, gave goodbye kisses to her and the kids. "Dad, come back soon?" asked Sophie. "I will, yes, my love," I promised. "Take care of your mom for me." If I had known she wasn't my blood daughter in that moment, but I still didn't know. I still had an idiot hope that maybe the kids were mine, that maybe the betrayal had started later. I left in the car, went around the block, parked far away, and went on foot to Betty's house. She received me, hid me in the back room. "Now we wait," she said. "It might take long. She isn't going to do anything right away. She's going to wait to be sure you are far." I waited. Hours. All afternoon. Night arriving. Around 10 at night, Betty's phone rang. It was her daughter who had stayed watching my house. "Mom, Mrs. Susan just left in the car. She went towards the church." Betty hung up and looked at me. "It is time, Mr. Frank." She left. Must be going to meet him. I got up, grabbed the phone, checked that the camera was working. Hands were shaking, heart beating out of rhythm. I was going to see with my own eyes the betrayal that had been killing me so long without me knowing. I left Betty's house with my heart in my throat. The night was dark, cloudy sky, those heavy clouds that announce rain. I went in the car slowly without rushing because I didn't know exactly where Susan had gone. Betty's daughter had said she took toward the church, but that could mean many things. Dayton isn't a huge city, but it has streets everywhere. I passed in front of the parish, all dark. Mass had ended a long time ago. I looked sideways, searching for her car. Nothing. Kept driving, slowly circling the streets around the church. That was when I saw it on the street behind the church where the rectory is. Her car, parked in the driveway of the priest's house, trying to hide, but I recognized it. It was the car I had bought her, a silver Nissan plates I knew by heart. I parked far away, 2 streets down in a dark spot where nobody would see me. Shut off the car and stayed there, just watching. The rectory was an old 2-story building with a front entrance facing the street and a back entrance facing a small yard. The windows on the top floor had lights on, dim, yellowish light, bedroom light. I felt the bile rise in my throat. My wife was in there with him, doing what I didn't even want to imagine. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down, but I couldn't. Hands shook, heart beat so hard I thought it was going to pop out of my mouth. I grabbed the phone, tested the camera again. It was working. Quality wasn't the best, but it worked to see. I stayed there waiting. I don't know how long. Could have been half an hour, could have been 2 hours. Time didn't pass. I just kept staring at that lit window, imagining what was happening in there, feeling a pain in my chest I had never felt in my life. It wasn't just pain of betrayal. It was pain of humiliation. I had worked my whole life, built everything we had, given comfort to her, respect, affection. And she was there in a priest's bed, betraying me, deceiving me, laughing at me. I decided to get out of the car. I couldn't stand staying there parked, just watching. I needed to see closer. I needed proof. I walked down the street, slowly hugging the walls like a thief in the night. Arrived near the rectory. The back gate was ajar. I pushed it carefully without making noise. Entered the yard. There was a small garden, some pots with flowers, a wooden bench under a tree, and there was a window on the first floor with the curtain poorly closed, leaving a crack. I got close, looked through the crack, and that was when I saw them. The living room of the house. Old furniture, crucifix on the wall, shelf full of religious books, and on the sofa, the two of them, Susan and Father Thomas, sitting very close, her leaning on him, head on his shoulder, him stroking her hair, affectionate, intimate in the way a husband does with a wife or a lover does with a lover. I raised the phone with a shaking hand, took a photo. The flash went off and I froze, thinking they were going to see me, but they didn't. They were too busy with each other. I took more photos, 3, 4, all I could before thinking it was too risky. They got up from the sofa. Father Thomas took Susan's hand and led her upstairs to the bedroom. I saw them go up, her laughing softly, him whispering something in her ear. They disappeared into the hallway upstairs. The living room light went out. Only the bedroom light remained on. I stayed down there in the yard, watching the bedroom window. The curtain was closed. You couldn't see anything, but I didn't need to see. I knew what was happening. My wife, who promised faithfulness to me at the altar, who wore the ring I gave her, who slept in my bed, was up there in another man's bed. And it wasn't just any man. It was a priest, a man who swore celibacy, who promised to serve God, who wore a collar and said Mass. I sat on the garden bench because my legs couldn't hold me anymore. I cried there, alone in the dark in the rectory yard. I cried like I hadn't cried since my dad died. I cried from pain, from rage, from humiliation. I cried for the lost years, for the betrayed trust, for the wasted love. I cried for the family I thought I had and that never truly existed. I stayed there for hours. I couldn't leave. I needed to see it to the end. I needed to see her leave there to be absolutely certain so I wouldn't have any doubt. I leaned my head on the cold wall of the house and waited. Dawn was coming. The cold increased. I started shivering, but I don't know if it was cold or nerves. Around 3 in the morning, the bedroom light went out. I went on alert. Minutes later, the back door opened. Father Thomas came out first, just in pants and a shirt, hair messy. Behind him came Susan. She was fixing her clothes, smoothing her hair, trying to compose herself. They stopped at the door. He pulled her for a hug, a long, tight hug. Then he lifted her face and kissed her. A long kiss of someone who doesn't want to part. I raised the phone again, took a photo. The flash lit up the yard for a second. They didn't notice. They were too busy. I took more photos of the hug, the kiss, the two together there in the door. Proof, concrete, irrefutable proof. Susan got in the car. Father Thomas stayed at the door waving. She reversed, left the driveway, drove off. He stood there a little longer watching the empty street. Then he went inside and closed the door. I waited a few more minutes to be sure he wasn't coming back. Then I left there, went back to my car, drove to Betty's house. She was awake, waiting. "Did you get it?" she asked as soon as she saw me. I showed her the phone, the photos. She looked and shook her head sadly. "Now you have proof. What are you going to do?" "I'm going home," I answered. "I'm going to wait for her to arrive. And I am going to end this lie today." I went home. I arrived before her, parked the car far away again, entered through the back door, which I had a key for. The house was dark, silent, the kids sleeping. Went to the bedroom, sat on the bed and waited. Half an hour later, I heard her car arriving, the garage door opening, steps on the stairs. She entered the room slowly, trying not to make noise, turned on the bathroom light, showered quickly, came out in a robe, drying her hair. That was when she saw me sitting on the bed watching her. She jumped.
Frank, my God, you scared me. What are you doing here? I thought you had traveled.
Her voice was altered, nervous. Arrived early, I lied. Where were you? I was here, sleeping. Bold-faced lie.
Really?
I asked, voice too calm, calm of someone holding a volcano inside. Yes. Why? She tried to appear natural, but I saw the nervousness in her eyes. Sit here, I asked, patting the bed beside me. She hesitated, but sat. I grabbed the phone. I need to show you something. I opened the photos. The first was her and the priest on the sofa hugging. I showed it to her. Susan's face went white, white as paper. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stared at the photo, frozen, without reaction. Want to see more? I asked, and scrolled. The second photo, both going up the stairs. The third, them at the door saying goodbye. The fourth, the kiss. Frank, I can explain. She tried, but her voice failed. Explain what? I exploded, could not hold it. Explain that you were sleeping with a priest? Explain that you have been betraying me for 20 years? Explain that while I work like a dog, you are in bed with that man? She started crying. Fake tears.
I am sorry, Frank. Please, listen to me.
I don't want to hear anything else, I shouted. 20 years, Susan. 20 years of lies. I trusted you. You were my wife. Woman of God, you said. Woman of the church. And you were sleeping with the priest.
I am so sorry,
she sobbed, but they were empty words. Since when? I asked, needing to know everything. Since when did this start? She stayed quiet. Answer.
Since before I married you.
The world stopped. Before marriage. Before? How before? I asked, voice disappearing. You were already with him when you married me? She nodded, crying.
I loved him first. But he became a priest. My family forced me to marry. I married you, but I never left him.
I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. 40 years of marriage. 40 years being second place, being the discard, being the sucker who paid the bills. You never loved me? I asked, already knowing the answer.
I tried to love you, Frank, in my way, but with Thomas it was different. It was
what? I shouted. It was true love? And what was I? The fool who paid the bills? She didn't answer. No need to answer. That is exactly what I was to her. A terrible doubt crossed my mind. The kids. I started, voice shaking. Rick and Sophie. They are mine. Susan looked at me with panic in her eyes.
Yes, they are. Of course they are.
Are you sure? I shouted. Are you absolutely sure? Because if you were already with him before marrying, they could be his.
No, Frank. They are yours. I am sure.
But her voice had no certainty. There was doubt, and the doubt was already too much. We are doing a DNA test, I decided in the moment. The three of us, me, you, and the two of them. I am going to know the truth. I am going to know if I spent 40 years raising another man's kids. No need for that, Frank. Please. Yes, there is, I cut in. And you are going to do it. Tomorrow we go to the lab, and if they are not mine, Susan, I swear I couldn't finish the sentence. The pain was too big. I got up, grabbed a pillow and a blanket. I am sleeping on the sofa. I can't stand being near you. I left the room, went down the stairs, threw myself on the sofa, and cried again. Cried until the sun came up. The next day, I took Susan and the kids to the lab. Rick and Sophie didn't understand anything. "Dad, why are we doing a DNA test?" asked Rick. "I will explain later, son," I answered, without the courage to tell the truth yet. They collected material from all of us, blood, saliva. The doctor said the result would be out in a week that was the longest of my life. A week living in the same house as Susan but not speaking to her. A week looking at my kids and asking myself if they were really my kids. The week passed. The lab called. "Mr. Frank, the results arrived. You need to come get them." I went alone. Didn't want to take Susan. Didn't want to take the kids. Entered the office. The doctor handed me the sealed envelope. "Do you want me to read it?" he offered. "No," I answered. "I will read it." I opened the envelope, read the result, felt the floor disappear under my feet. Rick paternity probability, 0%. He wasn't my son. Sophie paternity probability, 0%. She wasn't my daughter. Both had the same biological father, and that father wasn't me. 40 years. I raised 2 kids for 40 years. Paid for diapers, doctor, school clothes, toys, college, car, wedding. Taught to walk, to read, to drive. Consoled when they cried. Celebrated when they achieved victory. Loved with all my heart. And they weren't mine. Neither of them was mine. I left the lab like a zombie, got in the car. Don't even know how long I sat there just staring at the paper in my hand. The paper that destroyed everything I thought was my life. My kids weren't mine. They were Father Thomas's kids. The man I respected, who I called father, had stolen everything from me. The wife, the kids, the life. Went back home. Susan was in the living room. I threw the paper in her face. "Read!" She grabbed it with a shaking hand, read, and collapsed. Cried, threw herself on the floor, begged, "Frank, forgive me. Forgive me." "Forgive?" I shouted, almost losing my mind. "Forgive what? You stole 40 years of my life, stole my kids, stole everything." "They are your kids in the heart, Frank. You raised them." "But they aren't my blood," I shouted. "They are his blood, your priests, the man who swore celibacy and slept with you for 40 years, and I, the fool, paying for everything." I grabbed the car keys. "Where are you going?" she asked, desperate. "I'm going to end that priest's charade," I answered. "I am going to show the whole town who he really is, who you two really are." And I left, slamming the door, leaving behind a whole life of lies. I went straight to St. Mary's. It was Sunday morning, 9 o'clock Mass, the most packed of the week. Parked the car out front, got out, went in. The church was full, maybe 500 people. People from all over Dayton, whole families, elderly, young people, kids, everyone there to hear the word of God from the mouth of a man who had no moral ground to preach. Father Thomas was on the altar in white robes, celebrating Mass. His voice resonated through the church, solemn, serious. "Brothers and sisters, the peace of the Lord be with you, and with your spirit." The people responded in chorus. Pure hypocrisy, peace of the Lord. That man knew no peace. He knew sin, lies, betrayal. I stayed in the back of the church waiting for the right moment. My heart beat out of rhythm, hands sweated. Part of me wanted to scream right there, expose everything, but another part wanted to wait, wanted everyone to hear everything calmly so there would be no doubt. The Mass continued, gospel reading, homily, Father Thomas speaking about faithfulness, about honesty, about living according to God's commandments. Every word from him was an insult. "Thou shalt not commit adultery," he quoted with that theatrical priest voice. "Marriage is sacred, brothers. It is the union blessed by God. Whoever betrays the spouse betrays God." It was too much. I couldn't take it anymore. I got up from the pew and started walking down the center aisle. People looked at me strange. Father Thomas stopped speaking. He saw me coming toward the altar, recognized me immediately. The color disappeared from his face. I walked up the altar steps. The people went silent, not understanding anything.
Frank, the priest, tried with a shaking voice.
What are you doing?
I grabbed the microphone from his hand, turned to the crowd. 500 people looking at me, waiting. "This man," I started, pointing at the priest, "is a liar." The silence in the church became even heavier. This man who wears a collar, who celebrates Mass, who preaches about faithfulness and commandments, slept with my wife for 40 years. Screams shocked people standing up from the pews. "Frank, are you crazy?" someone shouted from the back. "Blasphemy?" another person shouted. "It is not blasphemy," I continued, voice firm now. "It is the truth, and I have proof." I grabbed the phone from my pocket, plugged it into the projector the church used for songs. The side wall of the church became a screen. Put the first photo. Father Thomas and Susan on the sofa, hugging. The scream heard in the church was deafening. People covering their mouths, people crying, people cursing. Moved to the second photo, both on the stairs, her leaning on him. Third photo, both at the door of the rectory. Fourth photo, the kiss. "Lie!" shouted Father Thomas, trying to take the phone from me. "It is a montage. He is lying." But everyone had seen the photos, and photos don't lie. Some people started shouting at him. "Scumbag! Sacrilege! Shameless priest!" There is more. I spoke into the microphone and the people went silent again. My kids, Rick and Sophie, you know them. I thought they were my kids. I raised them my whole life, paid everything for them, but today I discovered... Voice failed. Took a deep breath. Today I discovered they are not mine. They are his kids. Father Thomas's. Chaos took over the church. People shouting, crying, leaving, mothers covering kids' ears, men wanting to go up to the altar to grab the priest. The altar boys helping at Mass ran. The priest tried to leave through the sacristy, but I grabbed him by the arm. "You aren't running. You are going to own what you did." Frank let me go. He tried to break free, but I held him tight. "Admit it. Admit in front of everyone that you slept with her, that my kids are yours." "I won't admit anything. That is a lie." "Then explain the photos," I shouted, shaking him. "Explain why you were kissing my wife at the door of your house at 3 a.m. The people approached the altar surrounding us. "Explain, Father," a lady shouted. "Tell the truth." "You baptized my kids. How could you do this?" Voices multiplied. Rage grew. Father Thomas looked around, surrounded, no way out, and collapsed. "It was weakness," he mumbled, voice disappearing. "Weakness?" I exploded. 40 years of weakness. You promised celibacy, promised to serve God, and slept with a married woman for 40 years. You had kids? I didn't want to, but I loved her. His words confirmed everything. The confession, everyone heard. The church exploded in shouts again, people wanting to attack him, people insulting, people crying from disappointment. Priest I trusted, man I respected, baptized my kids. This hypocrite. I let him go and walked down from the altar. There was nothing else to do there. I had already exposed the truth. I left the priest to the angry mob, to the diocese, which certainly would be called for the justice of God he preached so much. I left. The news ran through all of Dayton in minutes. It's a big town, but gossip travels faster than light. In a few hours, there wasn't a person who didn't know. The priest had a mistress, slept with Frank's wife for 40 years. Frank's kids are the priests. My name in everyone's mouth. My shame exposed to the whole city. But I didn't care. I preferred the shame of truth than the dignity of a lie. The diocese came the same day. Bishops, secretaries, people. Investigation opened. Father Thomas removed immediately. They stripped him of his duties right there in front of everyone who had stayed at the church after the scandal. 35 years of parish ended in a day. A week later, the sentence. Father Thomas defrocked, kicked out of the church. He wasn't a priest anymore. He was nothing. 68 years old, a whole life dedicated to priesthood, thrown in the trash for a forbidden passion. Or so he said. For me, it wasn't passion. It was shamelessness, lack of character, prolonged lying. I filed for divorce, proven fraud, marriage based on a lie. 40 years of union dissolved in a signature. Susan had no right to anything. The house stayed with me, the cars, the company, everything. She left only with the clothes on her back and the shame she carried. The kids, my God. Telling the kids was the hardest part. I called both to talk. Rick was already 38, married with a son. Sophie, 35, also married. I sat with them in the living room and showed them the DNA test. "Dad, what is this?" asked Rick, grabbing the paper. He read it, turned white. "This is saying that I am not your father." "That is what it is saying, son," I answered with a broken voice. Sophie grabbed the paper from her brother's hand, read it too, eyes filled with tears. "No, it can't be." "It is true," I confirmed. "You are not my blood children. You are children of Father Thomas and your mom. They deceived me my whole life." The crying of both was heartbreaking. Sophie fainted right there, fell on the sofa. Rick kicked the wall hard, left a hole. "That bastard," he shouted. "That priest son of a... And her, my mom." "Calm down, son," I tried to calm. But how? How do you calm someone who just discovered their whole life was a lie? "Calm?" he shouted. "How do I stay calm? My dad isn't my dad. My mom is a..." He couldn't say the word. Collapsed, crying. Sophie woke from the faint, still dizzy. "Dad," she said with a broken voice, "are you still our dad?" I looked at them, at Rick, at Sophie, at the two kids I had raised, loved, cared for my whole life. "Yes," I answered firmly. "Dana changes nothing. I raised you. I taught you to walk, to talk. I paid for school college. I consoled you when you cried. I celebrated your victories. I am your dad. Always will be." Both hugged me. We cried together. 3 people destroyed by a lie that lasted too long. "We don't want to see her ever again," said Rick, pulling away from the hug. "Neither her, nor him, nor that man. They died to us." Sophie agreed. "They made us live a lie. They are nothing to us." And they kept their word. They never spoke to Susan again, never spoke to Father Thomas again, cut them out of their lives. At family parties, at grandkids' birthdays, I was called. She wasn't. Their biological father had a name on the birth certificate, but the real dad, the dad of the heart, was me. And nobody took that from me. Susan was left alone without a husband, without kids, without a house, without anything. She had to rent a little room in a poor neighborhood of Dayton, lived off cleaning houses, doing laundry for others. The woman who had everything, who lived in a big house, who had a car, comfort, fell into misery. And nobody had pity. The whole town knew what she had done. Nobody respected her. Father Thomas went back to his hometown somewhere in the boonies. Lives with his sister, they say. Sick, forgotten, without the collar he wore for decades. Nobody calls him father. Nobody respects him. Just another old man who sinned and is paying the price. And Susan, poor thing, or not so poor, went after him, looked for him, traveled to his town. "Now we can be together, Thomas," she allegedly said, according to what I was told. "No need to hide anymore. We can be happy." You know what he answered her? "I don't love you. You destroyed my life. Go away." He rejected her. After 40 years sleeping together, using her, he threw her away like trash. She came back to Dayton even more destroyed. 40 years of betrayal. 40 years giving up a real family, an honest marriage, respect, all for a man who, in the end, didn't want her. The irony of life. Months passed after the whole scandal. Life went on as it always goes on, even when we think it ended. The trucking company kept running. The kids kept visiting me. The grandkids kept filling me with joy. But the house was empty. Too quiet. For the first time in 40 years, I was truly alone. Betty kept working for me. I didn't fire her. On the contrary. "You were the only honest person in this whole story," I told her. "Risked everything to tell me the truth." I won't forget that ever. She stayed, and little by little, our relationship changed. Stopped being boss and employee, became friendship. Long talks in the kitchen, afternoon coffee together, her listening to me talk about the pain, me listening to her talk about her life. "Mr. Frank," she said one day, "you are a good man, hard-working, honest. You didn't deserve what they did to you. You deserve to be happy." I looked at her, at that simple, humble woman who never deceived me, who had courage when nobody else did. "Betty, do you accept having dinner with me? Not as boss and employee, as man and woman." She turned red, lowered her head, but accepted. It was the first dinner of many. I discovered in her a real partner, someone who respected me, who was sincere, who didn't lie. The town talked. Of course, Frank is with the housekeeper. What a shame. After everything that happened, he is going to shack up with the help? But I didn't care. Shame was betraying for 40 years. Shame was a priest sleeping with a married woman. Me choosing an honest woman was no shame. The kids supported it. "Dad, Betty took care of us our whole life," said Rick. "She was more of a mom than that woman. If you were happy with her, we support you." Sophie agreed, hugged Betty, called her stepmom with affection. 2 years later, I married her. Evangelical church, no priest, no lies. Simple wedding, just family and close friends. Betty in white, me in a suit. Happy, for real, for the first time. Today I am 69 years old. She is 60. We live in peace, in the same house, building a life based on truth. Susan is still alone. Works, cleaning, can barely pay rent. The kids don't talk to her. Father Thomas rejected her. 40 years of betrayal to end up with nothing. Father Thomas is still sick, forgotten, living with his sister. Not even a priest anymore. Just an old man who sinned and lost it all. I lost 40 years. Was deceived, humiliated, betrayed. But I gained something money doesn't buy. Truth. The housekeeper who cleaned my house cleaned my life too. Gave me courage to face the lie. Gave me real love when I needed it most. Betty promised nothing at the beginning, but delivered everything. Susan and the priest promised everything and delivered nothing. Sometimes I sit on the porch and wonder if my life wasn't just some twisted paperback novel written by a cruel author. But then I look at Betty pouring coffee, and I know the pain was real. But so is the peace I found. If this story of betrayal, of a lie kept for so long, touched your heart, if you ever went through something similar or know someone who did, leave me a like so this old man knows he isn't alone. Subscribe to the Grandparents' Diaries channel right now so you don't miss the next stories I'm going to tell, with all my affection. And tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from and what time it is there right now. Did you ever discover a truth that changed your whole life? Did you have to forgive a betrayal or decided to start over? This grandpa gets very happy knowing who is on the other side listening to me and at what moment of your day you took a little time to hear me. A tight hug the size of my heart. Life taught me that sometimes the simplest person is the most worthy, that nice clothes and titles don't make character, that a priest can be a sinner and a housekeeper can be an angel. I learned that raising a child isn't about blood, it is about love. Rick and Sophie don't have my DNA, but they have my heart, and I have theirs. Today, I am truly happy with a woman who respects me, with children who chose me, with grandkids who fill me with joy. I lost a lot, but I gained the most important thing: dignity. The truth hurts, but it sets you free. And I prefer living in the pain of truth than in the peace of a lie. Always.